Thank you for attending the Week of Kindness. Coming up next is another powerful, impactful, amazing speaker. Get your notepad out, get your pen. Let's get ready and enjoy.
Well, hello, everybody. Hope everyone is enjoying the Week of Kindness and Gratitude Summit. I know I am. It is a pleasure to be here as one of the keynote speakers. My name is Chris Salem, and I'm a CEO, business acceleration strategist, and a professional keynote speaker. And I'm going to be talking to you today about a world of kindness starts with you. And throughout this time that we're going to have together, I'm going to be sharing with you how, when we seek kindness in the world, how that's going to start with you, and how this is going to show up not only in your personal life, in terms of your own personal well-being, your relationships with your family, significant other, neighbors, people in your community, your business, and so on. And we're going to talk about, even on the back end, how we can incorporate that kindness coming from you and how that will dramatically impact your business. A matter of taking your business to a whole new level you never imagined. And then by doing that, and by learning to give without expectation, you'll be able to receive without resistance. You'll be able to take that money that you're bringing in and put it back out to help others do for themselves. So we're going to be sharing a lot of information here. So let's take a look at kindness in general. If we look at the world that we live in, there are so many wonderful things out there in the world. Many things that you can look back on your personal life, all the good things that have happened. But with all the good things that can happen, like, for instance, certain experiences that you may have had growing up, maybe perhaps getting married, when you married your significant other, when you had your first child, appreciating being out in nature when you're out hiking or something along those lines. These are things that we can find the beauty in the world that we live in. Now, there are also things in the world that are not so pleasant. There's a lot of that, right? With the media always putting out information about things that are happening around us. COVID and the war in Ukraine and all the things that we see around the world, that things that could happen to people in ways that are not good. But see, here's the thing about life in general. As people, we're so conditioned of seeing the good things in life from an external standpoint, that we're always seeking from things on the outside rather than from the inside in. What I'm going to share with you today is that if we're going to develop a kind world, a world coming from gratitude, to appreciate what's really important in the world, that's got to start with you. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that all means. See, well, let's first, before we start, think about your day-to-day, what you do on a day-to-day basis. How are you feeling? Ask yourself that. Now, I don't know about you, but I can remember back many years ago, prior to me going through this transformation with all the things I'm going to be sharing with you here today, I constantly was living, for the most part, in a state of fight or flight, meaning that I had all this anxiety and stress. I felt frustrated. And overall, I was a very angry young man. Now, how did that all come about? Well, I grew up in a codependent home. I grew up where I was constantly seeking this validation from my father. I didn't know it at the time because he was never around. So I eventually became a people pleaser. I said yes to everything so I could receive your validation in return. I also learned from my mother, who was wonderful, by the way, and a great parent, but she was a perfectionist. So I learned that everything had to be perfect. And if it wasn't, then it wasn't good enough. So as a perfectionist, I developed these aggressive behaviors and communication styles that I had a hard time delegating or trusting other people that could do it better than me. And I pushed a lot of people away. Now, I created a lot of the chaos and a lot of the things that weren't going right in my life back then. I didn't see the world from a place of kindness and gratitude. I saw it from a place of chaos, anger, always the victim and always pointing the finger at someone else. Now, I give you this backstory a little bit just to kind of shed some perspective of what I'm going to be sharing and what that means to you and how that resonates with you. So again, I grew up codependent, passive. I was a people pleaser. I was also a perfectionist, so I could be aggressive. So I grew up passive aggressive in my behavior and my communication style. So you can see that can be quite difficult to deal with, especially with relationships. And boy, did I have a hard time with that. Now, with that being said, if you can relate to that on some level, think about where you are and how you look at the world. Are you constantly looking for that kindness, that gratitude, that happiness that you're seeking outside of you? That someone has to make you feel better. Someone has to always be there for you. Someone has to tell you a joke to make you smile and laugh. Something good has got to happen before your business will take off. Or you got to be at a certain place before you can be successful in your business. Are these the things that you're constantly doing or telling yourself? Well, what I'm about to share is that it doesn't have to be that way. No matter where you are in your personal life, how you look at yourself in terms of your confidence and level of belief in yourself, wherever you are in your relationships, whether if you're married or with somebody or single, where you are with your personal well-being, physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially, socially, intellectually, environmentally, and so on. Doesn't matter. What I'm going to share with you here is that a world of kindness starts with you. That all the great things in the world that we look at and how we see and what we manifest come from within. If we're going to create change, if we're going to create a better world and how you live it, it's got to come from within. So let's talk a little bit about how do we make the shift to see the world from the inside out, from a place of where it is kind, despite some of the bad things that do happen in the world. And that we can appreciate from gratitude wherever we're at. We can honor that and respect that without thinking like, well, everybody else is ahead of me, or she or he has this and I don't have that. And you're constantly operating from jealousy, envy, and so on. Let's take a look at what that means for you. So let's first talk about, why do people feel anxious? Why do they feel stressed out? Why do they feel overwhelmed and frustrated? I'd like you to think about that. Write that down if you have a pen and paper, or type it into your phone, wherever you are. What does that mean to you? What can you not control? So think about it. If you're feeling that way, it's because you're caught up in something that you can't control. What are the things that we can't control in the world? Well, there are many things. Can't control the traffic when I go to work, or if I go to see a client. I can't control the weather. I mean, right now, it's snowing where I am. I wish it wasn't, but it is. I can't control the weather. I can't control COVID. I can't control the war in the Ukraine. I can't control what's happening with the stock market or the economy. What's happening in my industry? I have no control over that. But think about it. As people, do we get caught up in the control that we can't control? Yeah. And then what would be the number one thing that we can't control? Now, I'm sure some of you know this already. Yeah, it's other people. We can't control other people. And I'm going to talk a little bit here later what we cannot control in other people. There are 5 things, because we as people get caught up in these 5 things constantly with other people. But before I do that, since we're talking about how we can make a shift to be more kind where it comes from you and to have more gratitude, let's talk about the 5 things that you can control each and every day. each and every week, each and every month, quarter, and every year. What can you control? You can control yourself. And here are the 5 things that you can control each and every day within you. You can control your communication. Think about that. How do you communicate to yourself each and every day? Are you communicating from your inner critic or your inner champion? It's a choice. But be honest with yourself. If kindness is going to originate at the core level from you to manifest itself into the world, to help others do the same, get honest. Are you listening to the inner critic over the inner champion, or vice versa? Because here's the reality. If you're listening to your inner critic more, think about your communication. How is it going to come across to other people? Remember, I talked about I grew up a codependent. I was passive and aggressive in terms of my communication and behavior. See, as a passive person on the passive side, because I had this strong need for validation because I didn't get it from my father growing up, I would say yes to everything. I would go out of my way to please you and enable you for the exchange of your validation. But the reality was I never received the validation to the level I desired. So what was the byproduct of that? I didn't see the world as kind at that point. I saw it as chaos, frustration. It was never good enough. People were crap because they didn't live up to my expectation. They couldn't validate me the way I desired. Because again, I was always seeking this all outside of me. Is that the case with you? That's not an act of kindness to yourself. That inner critic is not looking to be your friend or to be kind in any way. But there is one thing that it does do. It creates the awareness to know that you don't have to listen to it, that you can shed those limiting beliefs and then learn to operate from your inner champion. So getting back, before I get into the limiting beliefs, let's go back to, the communication style. Need for validation, a yes person. I say yes to everything for the exchange of validation. Passive. Aggressive, again, if I'm a perfectionist and only I can do it the right way, how could I possibly trust and be kind or receive kindness from anyone else? Because they will never be good enough. I'll constantly be pointing the finger at them, straining more relationships as I move forward. So that codependent style of communication, passive aggressive, is not coming from an act of kindness. I can control that. I can learn to shift that communication to being assertive, which is interdependent, meaning that I'm becoming more specific, clear, and concise with my communication. Thus, I can do the same for others. Now, whether if I'm the receiver or the sender of the communication, I have control over that. If somebody, as a yes person, would say, I require to have this assignment done right away. Now, the old me, being the people pleaser, would have just dropped everything, the things I was working on that were very important, top priority, and just did it for that person right then and then. But what does that mean? I require it right away. If I had just asked a question, hey, I know that you've asked me to help you do this, and you said you require it right away. I have some other things that are very important to me that I have to get done. On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is this get done at what time that you have to have it done? Is it at the top of the hour, later this afternoon, or the end of the week? Now, that took me 30 seconds tops to clarify that. And you'd be surprised that most people would like to have it right away, but in reality, could have waited till yesterday or the end of the week. Now, even though that person should have been more specific, clear, and concise as well, I can't control that. I can control how I counteract that question or that statement or demand with more questions to clarify how urgent they required that. I can control that. Now, imagine the amount of grief and all the chaos that comes from expectations go unfulfilled and the friction that can result of it was reduced considerably by me taking 30 seconds to clarify with questions how important that had to get done. You have control over that. That's being kind to yourself. That's being kind to someone else, even though it may not come across that way initially, but in the long run, it is. Now, being a perfectionist, always demanding from people and it's never good enough. I can control that. I can learn to delegate and trust that people can follow through if I'm more specific, clear, and concise in my communication. And that I'm listening to them to clarify that they clearly understood what had to get done. I have control over that. I can shift from being a passive-aggressive communicator to being assertive. Now, how do we get rid of those limiting beliefs that we talked about? Well, let's first talk about where those come from. Those limiting beliefs come from your childhood. Remember that strong need for validation I told you about that I got from my father, and that I developed this level of perfectionism from my mother. All of those are tied to my self-limiting beliefs from childhood that now were playing out in my adult life. They impacted my self-esteem, my confidence, obviously my communication that we just talked about, because I was passive and aggressive, not assertive. And they also affected many other things that I'm going to talk about here shortly. Of those 5 things, it affected my ability to take risks, to follow through with massive action, because I was a procrastinator. Because I was constantly thinking in the past and the future. That's where limiting beliefs thrive. That's where fear thrives. Fear is simply your mind operating in the past and the future, tied to an expectation to an outcome, tied to the control you couldn't control, the weather, taxes, the economy, what's going on in your industry, tied to other people and the things you can't control in them, instead of focusing on what I can control. So I learned to shift my mind and my thinking away from the past and the future, where fear thrives, where limiting beliefs thrive, and obviously where expectations that go unfulfilled thrive. I shifted that thinking away from that into the present moment, trusting the process to operate from intention, not expectation, to focus only on what I can control that would lead to the results I seek. It's a big shift. But let's finish up the 5 things that we can control first, so this all makes sense to you, to create more kindness and gratitude that comes from within you, to reflect outward, to manifest and do all these things that you would love to do. Create better harmony with your wellness, better relationships with the people that are important to you in your life, and building a business that you can take to a multi-6-figure, 7, 8-figure, whatever you desire. And I'm going to show you a little bit, share with you a little bit later how you can go about doing that. Let's get back to the things we can't control. We talked about communication, number 1. We can control that. Number 2 is our behavior. It's the same thing: passive, aggressive, or assertive. The first 3 being codependent, the latter being interdependent. So a lot of times when you are passive or aggressive or both, your behavior will reflect more likely the same way. We can control our communication and behavior. We can shift our way of thinking away from fear in the past and the future, tied to expectations to outcomes, to being in the moment where fear is reduced, operating from intention, trusting the process of focusing on what we can control that leads to the results we seek. So we talked about 2 out of the 5. So the third is your attitude. Now, you've always heard that thing, an attitude of gratitude, right? You can control your attitude. No matter what challenge or setback or any difficult situation that you're going through, you can choose your attitude and how you see it happening for you and not to you. So what does that mean? There's a big difference. When it's happening to you, you are now focused on the things you can't control. You are the victim. You're operating from your own excuses. That's not being kind to yourself or others. Rather, seeing it happening for you. See, think about it. Are we going to grow and expand and things are going to get better in our life if you are comfortable all the time, complacent, and then eventually bored? There's no room for growth there. Growth happens when we face challenges. You think about an Olympian athlete. You think they won the gold medal or silver medal because they just showed up and decided, okay, it took them years. They had many challenges and setbacks. But instead of seeing it happening to them, they saw it happening for them. It allowed you to think in a different way, to be it, to become it. As people, because we live in this unkind world, the way they view it, they're so caught up in the do and the have, and they don't even have a foundation where they think in a different way, to be it, to become it. That is your foundation to do and have different and better results. We're so caught up in the world that we don't look at that. But nobody can change your thinking or do the being and doing what you become other than you for yourself. No one's going to come here to make you be happy or to laugh or to feel good. That's an internal decision. Kindness starts from with you. So it's an attitude of seeing things happening for you and not to you. Big difference. Now, we talked about 3 out of the 5 so far, what we could control. The next is our emotions. Emotions are going to be emotions, feelings, moods. And when we look at emotions, it's how are we responding rather than reacting to situations. Now, when we are operating from a place where we see the world as unkind, not forgiving, relentless in how it just beats us down, we see it happening to us, we tend to react from fear. And when we react, we're reacting from that primary emotion, which could be anger, shame, guilt. Ask yourself, is that really being kind to yourself to serve you? No, it's not that you shouldn't acknowledge that you feel that way. It's okay to feel that way. But knowing you can choose to respond now, not from that primary emotion. You could pause to change and respond from a secondary emotion. Or maybe you remove yourself from the situation for 10 minutes, collect your thoughts, and then respond. Maybe you have to sleep on it before you come back the next morning to send that email or to respond to that person. Because if we react out of fear, we're just like putting more gas on the fire. Is it really serving you from a place of kindness and gratitude? So it's learning how do we can choose through the power of pause, whether if that's a few seconds, 10 minutes, you're sleeping on it, that we can learn to respond rather than react to situations. And finally, number 5 is action. We can control our action each and every day. Either you're taking action or you're not. Or you're doing something, but you're caught up in the priorities that really don't matter because you have allowed fear to hold you back from the things that are really important. So the key here is to constantly be putting ourselves into the stretch zone, not the complacent and the bored zone where nothing grows, stagnation, but learning to embrace the challenge and the setback so that we can think in a different way to be it, to become it, and then grow and have different and better results. Now, that doesn't mean that you go into the strain or burnout phase, because that's not going to work either. It's the same as complacency and boredom. It's just one end of the spectrum to the other. That's not going to serve you. But being in the stretch zone, that's where the growth takes place. You can control that. Think about what that can do to your personal life and taking care of your well-being, to be kind to yourself and be the example and be a resource for others to do the same. Think about what that would do in your relationship when you own your role and duties and be accountable. That's being interdependent. And then again, being an example and being a resource through your interdependent communication, behavior, your attitude, your emotions, it's, responding versus reacting, and your action, that you can be that example and be a resource for others to do the same. It's powerful. That's creating more kindness. Even though initially some people may not like it, you're not enabling them. You're not keeping them stuck. They eventually will have to make a decision to do something for themselves, to own their own role and duties to move forward. That's creating more kindness. And being resourceful means not always just doing for them, empowering them, sharing versus telling, allowing them to decide what to do with that information or knowledge or the resources to apply for themselves. Now, when we can learn to control those 5 things, magic starts to happen, which I'm going to share here shortly. Now, getting back to other people we talked about earlier. So what do you think would be the 5 things that you cannot control in other people? What would that be? Yeah, it's the same 5 we just talked about in other people. I can't control their communication. I can't control what they're going to perceive what I said. I can ask a clarifying question. I can take the ownership as the sender or the receiver of the communication to clarify it. Still, I don't have control over their response or if they're going to send an email to me. I can't control their behavior. How about you parents? You think we can control our children's behavior? Well, some level we can, but a lot of times it's not to the level you think it is. We can't control somebody's attitude, their emotions, how they react versus respond rather than respond, and their action. But as people, we get caught up in that. That's the world of expectations. See, kindness doesn't thrive, nor does gratitude, in the world of expectations. Because expectations are built upon the control we can't control in other people, in situations that we don't have control over. Intentions are from within. We can control that. Your results will be a byproduct of your intentions, and also trusting the process of what you can't control, that it will all work out. Blind faith, if you like to call it. When we can shift our thinking away from, again, expectations that thrive from fear, to being in the moment where fear is reduced from intentions, that's where the magic happens. You begin to see that by trusting the process and being kind to yourself, learning from your mistakes, learning from failures, embracing challenges, that you learn to now think in a different way, to be it, to become it, and then to do it differently and have better, more sustainable results long term. Doesn't mean you always win, but you're always learning and growing, which is even more important. And as a result of that, what do you think it's going to reflect inside of you? What will that reflect differently inside of you? Yeah, it's going to raise your level of self-esteem. It's going to raise your confidence so that your vibrational energy, because we're all human beings, we are energy. We are vibrating at certain levels. When we're not being kind to ourselves or coming from gratitude, we are operating from a lower frequency in terms of vibration. But when we can learn to control what we can, letting go of what we can't, being present, we can raise our vibrational energy to think in a different way. And what we think then reflects in our words. It reflects in our behavior, our attitude, our emotions, our action, which are all energy, to then manifest bigger and better things into our lives and our businesses. Think of it that as the foundation. If you were building this beautiful home, which a lot of people do, there's beautiful cars, there's beautiful houses. But what if the foundation to those things is not solid? What's going to happen to those vehicles and what's going to happen to that house? They're going to have problems. And as a society, that when we look at it from a place of unkindness, is we're just managing the problem instead of solving the challenge, learning from it, and finding solutions to grow. When we can do these things and our vibrational energy increases, our confidence goes up. We begin to manifest better things into our lives. We begin to put up healthy boundaries to block off toxic people or codependent people that are going to drain us. Doesn't mean you get rid of them or get them out of your lives unless it comes to a point it's too toxic. But we begin to respect ourselves so we can then respect others. It's like the oxygen mask, right? When it comes down on a plane, most people would put it on themselves, or put it on their child before they put it on themselves, when it should be the direct opposite. You have to serve yourself to fill your cup before you could spill onto others in a positive way. If you're going to be the example and be a resource and really help somebody from kindness, you have to do for yourself. It's not a selfish act. Doing for people and neglecting you is not serving anyone. You're keeping yourself stagnant and you're keeping the other person from doing anything for themselves and keeping them stagnant. You have to be the change in order for others to change for themselves. You can begin to see the world from a place of kindness and gratitude when you begin to do these things for yourself. And by raising your confidence, your communication dramatically increases. Your behavior is going to align with other people where you connect on shared values to build better rapport. And when you build better rapport with people and people trust you, they're going to work with you. They desire to be around you, do business with you. They're open to new ideas. These are the things that, again, about learning to be more kind to yourself and coming from gratitude can make so much dramatic changes in your life. It'll improve your ability to take calculated risks, because without risk, we can't grow. You can't become more innovative, more creative. And learning to focus on the priorities that matter, no matter how hard they are, or how hard we initially see them from a place of fear, that we do it anyway. We take massive action. All of these are going to reflect positively long-term in terms of your well-being, your relationships, your business. Business cannot go forward or scale without taking calculated risks, without taking massive action, without learning to delegate to work on rather just in your business. You work in your business always, your growth is going to be the same. It's not going to happen. You have to build that foundation from within, from a place of kindness, from a place of gratitude. So what are some of the things that you can do to develop more kindness and gratitude from within? Well, it all comes down to your daily routine. And that daily routine is not something you do once in a while or a few times a week. It's something you do every day of your life. Now, what I'm going to share with you is just a suggestion. Doesn't mean that you have to do this verbatim. That's up to you, because this is about you. That kind of starts with you. You have to decide what that's going to be for you. Now, every morning, and for the last 24 years, this is a daily routine that I do that has not only allowed me to shed my limiting beliefs that freed me away from the chains of validation from others, and then also getting away from being a perfectionist and shedding those limited beliefs. But it created a foundation, a success foundation that allowed me now to be it, to become it, and do things and have better results, continuous results, long term that have reflected in my business and becoming very successful as a speaker, as a business owner, being a co-owner in several startup companies, being on the boards of certain companies that have gone public. You have these opportunities in how you think and how that reflects through your kindness and your gratitude to others. So let me talk about that daily routine. I remember 24 years ago when I said that the pain was greater than I desired, that I was going to do whatever I had to do to not be in that pain that I was in, operating from anger. I had struggled up to that point from 12 years of addiction to escape because I didn't know any other way. I had a strong sexual addiction to pornography, alcohol, drugs, cocaine was my choice because of the anger. But when I chose that I was going to do something different, even though it was the last thing in the world I desired to do, I knew that I had to do it in order to have a chance to live and operate in a better way, to take my success that I've had up to that point where it was short-lived and now make it more sustainable. So here's what I did. I began to get up at a certain time. Now, it wasn't easy in the beginning. Now, I had ADHD. I also didn't mention that. I was born with ADHD. So my attention span was very limited. I was very edgy. I had racing thoughts. So I knew by adopting a daily routine, this may help that, keep me focused, to have more clarity. So I began to get up at a certain time, 4 a.m. I'm not saying you got to get up at 4 a.m., but I got up at 4 a.m. because I knew that if I could give myself 2 hours to do something I haven't done, using discipline and being consistent, that would allow me to change the way I think and to be. Now, I have to stress the importance of discipline. Discipline is not a bad word. It's not mean you're being scolded. Doesn't mean you have to be a Navy SEAL or an Army cadet. This is, again, doing things that you don't like to do, but knowing that they will serve you and move you forward, and you do it anyway. And your consistency each day, each week, each month, quarter, year compounds to move you forward. So I would get up at 4 a.m. I would then make my bed. It allowed me to accomplish a small task. I would then meditate for 20 minutes. Now, it took me 9 months to get into a meditative state. I had to white knuckle it for the first 9 months when I started this 24 years ago. It was very difficult. So many times I was ready to quit. It was frustrating, but I did it anyway. Discipline and consistency. I then journaled. No intentions, just wrote down whatever came to mind. This is how I got to the root cause of my limiting beliefs, that strong need for validation and my perfectionism. I didn't even know about any of this stuff at the time. It all came out from my subconscious mind to my conscious mind through my arm onto a piece of paper. Many times I would write things that made no sense. Sometimes I wouldn't write anything at all. Maybe it was a few words. It was 5 paragraphs. It didn't matter. Sometimes it didn't even make any sense what I wrote. But when I was able to go back, it all came out in the wash. All these things are buried at the subconscious level, and your subconscious mind operates everything that you do each and every day through your communication, behavior, attitude, emotions, and your action. And if it's not up to par, that's where the change has to happen from within. So I would do that. I would then go work out, resistance training 4 days a week, cardio 3, planks every day. I would come back, take a shower, start with the cold water, and then work my way up slightly to warm water, just to kind of revitalize the senses in my body. I'd eat a healthy breakfast. Then I would read a chapter or two out of a book that would allow me to get focused. And then I would review my daily goals for the day. I've been doing that now for 24 years. I've never missed a day. No matter if I'm flying on a plane from Singapore to New York, I find a way to do it. No matter what time zone I'm on. No excuses. Kindness and gratitude evolved from that, from within. At night, I would do a gratitude list to write down the things I'm grateful for. Even if I had difficult day, and it was one of the toughest days that I've been through. I would also read as well to quiet my mind so I could sleep more peacefully, to wake up more refreshed. So these routines help you to make that shift in your thinking from away from fear tied to expectations to now being in the moment from intentions. These are the things that made a dramatic change in my life, in my relationships. Now, up to that point, I was engaged twice. Because of my ADHD and anger and my addiction, I lost several relationships. I severed many business relationships as a result of it. But as I started to make that shift in thinking through this process I just described to you, beautiful things began to happen over time. But believe it or not, I actually started to go through even more challenges and setbacks than even before. But I didn't see it that way. I saw it from a place as it's happening for me, and it molded me to become the man I am even today, from character, from those set of values, allowing me to connect with people on shared values, to build better rapport, not to be just selling something, but to build relationships and let the products and the business be a result of it. It's wonderful. So you ask yourself, what is that routine going to look like for you? How can you get to the root cause of your self-limiting beliefs to remove them? Now, I wrote an international best-selling book in this area, Master Your Inner Critic, Resolve the Root Cause, Create Prosperity. I worked with Jack Canfield also in this area on business mindset. And you can buy that book, by the way, if you like, on Amazon, or it's on Audible, and at least give you some insight to how you could go about getting rid of that stinking thinking right there and build that success mindset foundation for yourself. So I just wanted to remind everybody to summarize everything that we've gone over. A world of kindness starts with you. It's how you think, to be it, to become it, to then do things differently, and then have different and better results. You're through discipline and consistency, by improving your communication, behavior, attitude, emotions, and how you respond versus react and take action, will reflect in your example and your resourcefulness for your significant other, your children, your neighbors, your community, your business, your clients. And through that example and resourcefulness, that's where the change happens. You're helping someone to do that for themselves. You're creating more kindness from your example and resourcefulness because you did it for you first. It's not the other way around. Because the other way around, you may be doing it again for all the reasons that are not serving you like you thought, from a place of codependency, the need for validation. If I just go out of my way and please everybody, they'll all love me. Ask yourself how you feel at the end of the day. You feel drained, you feel exhausted, frustrated, angry. So I've shared with you just a different perspective on a world of kindness. That imagine if people were all doing that and creating more interdependency in the world. Think about the dramatic shift that would happen in our world. It would be profound. Now, it sounds easy, but to do is another. But when you really think about it, it's not as complicated as we think it is. But we, as people, make it more complex because we are conditioned to get caught up in the control we can't control. You don't have to own it anymore. You don't have to own what you can't control. Own what you can. Now, I hope this information was enlightening and helpful. And I encourage you to challenge you. What is one thing that you can do now to start putting kindness forward, to take care of you so you could be an example and resource for others? What is one habit that you can start to master and do once a day for the next month or two? And then eventually, as you get that down, you add another one and then another one to build out your daily routine. I challenge you to do that. Don't try to do it all at once because you'll set yourself up to stop and not do it. Do one thing at a time, 1 foot at a time forward, 1 day at a time, how you want to look at it. Now, I did promise you we're going to talk about how kindness shows up in business. Up to this point, we talked about you, your personal life, and so on. See, business is that if we're going to grow and scale our businesses from a place of kindness and gratitude, it's not about your product. It's not just about your experience. That's what we've been led to believe. It's about you. And more importantly, it's about them, that you're compelling to the people you serve. By being compelling, you have to also serve yourself first. You have to fill your cup up first. You've got to be able to have that kindness and gratitude coming out of you because it was built from within. If you're going to be compelling to others, there are millions of realtors in a 60-mile radius. Maybe not millions, but let's just say thousands of realtors in a 60-mile radius. Boy, is somebody just going to call you because you're a realtor? No, they're going to call you because they connect with you because of the person you are, your values, and more importantly, that you were compelling to them. You listen to them. You understand them on some level. That's what kindness and gratitude is, how it shows up in business. Just like I shared with you my story, my backstory. I can use that through my values of being transparent, being honest, coming from integrity. I got nothing to hide. I have no problem sharing my strengths, sharing you with my weaknesses. And this is how I connect with my audience. I'm able to do this from a place of what is important to people, sharing, allowing them to decide what is getting in their way, what's important to them. And then by them relating from the story I shared, we build a level of rapport. We start building a relationship, getting to know each other. That leads to more sustainable results long-term in terms of business, whether if they're going to work with you or at least refer people to you. Now, as a professional speaker, I've learned and I've taught many speakers how to do this. And many people hire me each and every week as I can share with them to show them how to leverage their story, their values, this way of thinking from kindness and gratitude we talked about to build their businesses from a place of speaking. Now, not all of you are going to be speakers. Some of you are great writers. You can leverage that. It could be either one or a combination. But it's about what's important to the people you serve. Sharing versus telling. Putting stuff out there that's going to connect on those shared values. You don't have to have the same values verbatim. They're shared values. But you're finding a way to connect on those shared values. And when you build that rapport and you get to what's really important to people or flush that out to what's important to them, and then ask them if they're open for a suggestion, more or less of the time, people are going to be open to work with you. So no longer, I can't afford it, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, are not going to be the excuses that you typically hear because you didn't build a level of rapport with them. Building a rapport with people comes across how compelling you are to others. And that starts from the kindness and gratitude that you build from within. That foundation we talked about, it's magic. I know when I speak at leading industry B2B and B2C events around the world, I come from an intention that I'm going to give value. I'm going to be open, share my story, share things that are going to be highly compelling, engage the audience to participate, to be part of the experience. And I can tell you from that, many times it leads to a lot of business, whether if I'm working with a company or I'm working with a CEO, a business owner, a high-performing sales professional, a lawyer, doctor, CPA, anybody. I didn't have to sell them. They enrolled in my business. I spent 23 years in sales. I don't sell anymore. I don't have to. People enroll in my business because we connect on shared values. Connecting to what's important to them through being compelling through the content I share on social media, content that I engage people with when I speak on a podcast, something like we're doing here, You can do this as well. It's learning that from a place of kindness and gratitude, we don't have to get caught up in what we do or compare ourselves to others. Stay in your lane. Trust the process. Control what you can, let go of what you can't. Put things out there to let people engage it and discuss it. Find out what's best for them. This is what opens up doors. You could take your business to a whole new level, 7 figures, through speaking. Now, it's not just speaking, by the way. I should say that. It's going to definitely lead you down that way, no question about it. But you have to be able to also, not only what I shared about connecting from that foundation of values and how we think from kindness and gratitude, it's also learning to help them understand where there are areas in their business that are maybe they don't have awareness, or that they're looking, for other ways that they can do to scale their business. Now, one of the things I do with our business acceleration strategy program, that what I do when I come from a place of kindness, I'm not selling anybody. I'm doing assessments for businesses and for people. We go through an assessment. We look at where could they cut costs. Many times people are overspending for certain things that they don't have to, that could be added to your bottom line. Many people have what they think is a value proposition, but it's about them. It's nothing compelling to the audience you serve. You're trying to be like everybody else or compare yourself to everybody else. It's about having a powerful market domination position and doing that from a place of what is compelling to your audience. It's also in your powerful offer, not your cheesy offer like, hey, if you buy now, you could have it for $9.97, but regularly it's $4.997. But if you do it now, no, I'm not talking that. A powerful offer is inviting someone to have a conversation with you, to get to know them, to learn about what's important to them. Because if something was compelling to them that resonated through you speaking at an event, they're now more inclined that they're going to be looking to talk to you and have a conversation to get to what's really important to them. That shows up in the powerful offer, to take action. And when you can build that rapport and people do business with you, as you're adding more money to their bottom line, you're accomplishing the things that are important to them. You can then increase your pricing. They're not going to question that unless it's significant increase, but those subtle increases. So you're not having to bring in more clients for the sake of growing your business. You could do it with just bringing in a small group of people or businesses at a time. Learning how to upsell and cross-sell. In this case, I don't even like to even use that word, but to up enroll and cross enroll. I'd rather use that term. You can do that if people are getting value from what you've connected on and you've helped to grow their business or accomplish what's important to them. They're more than likely now going to be open for other ideas that will complement that. And when we can bundle things from a place of being a solution-based source, it makes it more sustainable for them to grow. It's not like everything has to be a la carte. We can bundle certain things that are going to be customized to address what's important to them. We could also learn, some places where to downsell or down enroll. In this case, I know people are asking me, what does that mean? But in this case, there might be some cases where that, again, if you're coming from integrity, that it may not require them to upgrade to certain other things, that their businesses are doing extremely well for where they're at. You don't have to now upsell them up enroll them for other things. You can down enroll them. In this case, you're not letting them go, but unless that's where hey, everything has ran its course and they're ready to move on. But by doing that from a place of integrity and from those shared values, they trust you. They're going to refer you. And that's going to be another way to grow your business. And by doing this allows us to expand our products and services, take advantage of alliance partners and joint ventures. Looking at certain ways to communicate with your audience through your e-newsletter, through social media, not just telling people what you're doing and how this will benefit them, but building that rapport, putting out things that are consistently compelling for them, that they keep working with you. They keep coming back. They keep referring people to you. And knowing that leads are generated on a continuous basis based upon the value that you put out. I post every day on social media. I'm speaking on some platform, whether if I'm talking to a corporation, at an entrepreneurial event, at an industry B2B or B2C event, on a virtual summit like this, constantly driving leads. New people, new businesses that you could develop relationships with through kindness and gratitude. And then leveraging the power of digital media to do that. Now, one of the things that I would like to conclude with today is that if we're going to seek more kindness and more gratitude, and you're going to take whatever you've heard here today to apply to do that from within, what is the action you're going to take to develop one habit as part of your daily routine? How are you going to change your thinking to be in the moment rather than the past and the future? What are some things that you can do now in your business? What was shared here briefly? I didn't know I didn't have enough time to do that. From kindness and gratitude. Now, one of the things I would love to conclude here with, if you see here in the chat box, I like to make an offer for you action takers. Now, this isn't, I'm not sitting there trying to sell you something, because that's not what's happening here. I'm inviting people to, have a conversation. Let's get to know each other. Is there synergy here? Can there be something here that could help you grow yourself professionally and take your business to another level? Maybe, maybe not. But if we don't go out and meet people, then we'll always be guessing what is or what could have been. I'm encouraging those people that are action takers to take action. Let's connect. I'd like to present to you a complimentary 45-minute session where I'll be able to provide an assessment to look at how could speaking help grow your business? How could we look at where your business is now and go through a series of assessment criteria to determine where you are and where you could be in the areas that require improvement? I'd be happy to provide that as we get to know each other. No obligation, no strings attached whatsoever. Because I'm here, people enroll in my business. I don't have to sell, and nor do you. Let the power of the kindness and gratitude bring people to connect based upon what's compelling and where there's synergy to work together. So if you see there in the chat box there, again, I'm also going to provide you an ebook that's going to be Sustainable Solutions, 12 Proven Strategies for Continuous Results. That will be my gift to you, no obligation. And when you reach out, I'm old-fashioned, and I like to do this to see if people are going to take action. Go to my website, christophersalem.com/contact. Set up a time for us to talk and meet, and put in the message, I am kind and I will shine in 2023. Because I can promise you, if you learn to be kind to yourself and you believe in yourself and you serve yourself, you're going to be helping out so many people through your example of resourcefulness in all areas of your life and business. I look forward to connecting with all of you, or those that choose to take action. Again, there's no obligation whatsoever. It's just a chance to get to know each other. And I promise that I'm going to extend this assessment to you to assess how speaking can help take your business to 7 figures, how to get paid as a speaker to grow your business, and look at where you're at, where we can run through some assessment criteria to see how we can accelerate your business to move forward. Again, reach out at christophersalem.com/contact. And again, it has been a pleasure to serve you here at the Week of Kindness and Gratitude Summit. I hope you enjoy the other speakers that are going to be sharing their words of wisdom and insights and experience. And again, May 2023 be your year to be kind to yourself and others, and may you shine going forward.
Wow, I hope you enjoyed that just as much as I did. Thank you so much for all of that great information. Hey, we're not done yet, so just relax. We're going to continue on with our next speaker in just a few moments.